Hello, folks. Let's go ahead and get started. My name is David Holt. I'm with Welcoming New Hampshire, which is a campaign of the New Hampshire Alliance for Immigrants and Refugees. But we are just one of the coalition for One Concord. One Concord is a coalition of groups and individuals in Concord that are working to try to get the DEIJB committee up and running. Today, a couple little things. If you didn't already, we're asking folks to put in your top 3 issues on a sticky note here. And then at the end, outside the door, we're also asking for feedback from people. So if you can put a little note on a sticky note and stick it on that would be great. Keep that in mind. We are also crowdsourcing our photography for today, so feel free to take pictures of yourselves and your friends, etc. And if you could send them to oneconcord2023@gmail.com, which we have a little flyer for, we'll hold up later. But that being said, I would love to introduce Fisto Nadeyashima, who has been spearheading and who we owe the existence of One Concord to. So I'll give this to Fisto.
Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. Hello. A little quieter, huh? Hello, everybody. Hello. Thank you so much. Thank you for introducing me. My name is Fisto Ndeshimie. I'm a resident of Concord. I live in Pennacook, Ward 1. And I love this community. I always have to mention that. Thank you all for coming. Community members, One Concord members, you get to know them as we keep working on this. And I appreciate our city councilors who participated today, including our mayor, Byron Champlin. It's a little bit hard to change this, but I'll get used to it. Thank you so much, and I appreciate our speakers who are going to speak today. And these are selected group of people from marginalized communities that understands the areas that people have issues in our community that can speak to and can advocate for. So these people really understand that area, and we want them to be people to advocate their people. And this is a flow, this is a space for them to talk about those issues. So I would really want us to kind of round of applause for those people who stepped up and want to speak today. So. And I appreciate James McKim to joining us, and Annie Maikar, who is here today. Those are great people. I have no, I can't even introduce them. They're a little bit bigger than my mind. So, yeah, thank you so much. So today, do you want me to continue? Or?
No, go ahead.
Okay. I don't know how to this is planned, but I just want to kind of introduce One Concord. I know it's a new organization to y'all, but I want to make sure that y'all understand what is One Concord and what's the mission of this this community forum, and what's our mission as an organization for this DEIJB committee. We would like to support our city councilors, and this is where we start. So a little bit about One Concord. One Concord is committed to creating a united and inclusive Concord community where organizations and individuals come together to foster social cohesion, empower individuals, and address shared challenges. Through collaboration, advocacy, and resource sharing, we aim to promote understanding, respect, and social equity. By empowering individuals, enhancing community engagement, and addressing common issues, we thrive to create a sense of belonging and unity for all. Our vision is to create a united and inclusive community where organizations and individuals collaborate to foster social cohesion, empower individuals, and address shared challenges. And our mission, One Concord, is dedicated to bringing together diverse organizations and individuals to work collectively towards building a stronger community, stronger Concord community. Through collaboration, advocacy, and resource sharing, we aim to promote understanding, respect, and social equity. We thrive to empower individuals, enhance community engagement, and address common issues, fostering a sense of belonging and unity for all. A little bit about why this started and who started it. I started it. It's an idea. Well, an idea never starts with two people, right? I think every idea starts with one person, and One Concord idea started with me. But now it's a bigger organization with a lot of people. It's no longer just my idea, but it's an idea that everybody wanna support and work together. At One Concord Coalition, our mission is to bring people together and unite everyone, regardless of their background or story. We believe that diversity is a strength, and that by embracing our differences, we can create a stronger and more inclusive community. We acknowledge that our community is currently divided, and there is much work to be done to address these issues. We understand that there are deep-rooted issues of inequality, discrimination, and systemic barriers that have contributed to this division. We also recognize that these issues disproportionately affect marginalized communities, including people of color, immigrants, LGBTQ+, individuals, and those with disabilities, and people of faith. My story. When I first considered starting this organization, I reflected on my own experiences. When I arrived in the United States, it was completely different life for me. Being different and not understanding the culture came with its challenges. Some people made me feel like I didn't belong. And I soon realized that I didn't have the same access to opportunities as everyone else. This realization fueled my determination to create change and to ensure that no one else would have to face the same struggles. Although I may appear happy and successful, I'm not. I have personally faced discrimination in schools and within my community in various ways. It is not easy for a young Black new American to thrive in a community that still experiences discrimination and lacks common policies. Many communities also lack access to resources. Communities like LGBTQ community, communities like disabilities, communities like Black New Americans, Indians, people from different backgrounds, such as quality education, that's what we lack, healthcare, and affordable housing. This is why I founded One Concord, to ensure that all communities are represented, to hold our leaders accountable, and to create a safe and welcoming space for everyone. One Concord is not just an organization, but a movement. We are committed to advocating for social justice, equity, and inclusion in all aspects of our community. We believe that everyone should have equal opportunities to succeed and thrive, regardless of their race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, or socioeconomic status. We welcome any organization and community member who wishes to join us in making a difference. We understand that some individuals are working multiple jobs just to make ends meet and may not have the time to advocate for what they care about. That's where One Concord comes in. We are here to support every marginalized community. We will work tirelessly to amplify their voices, address their concerns, and fight for their rights. Our current priority is to establish the DEIJB Committee, which stands for Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Justice and Belonging. This committee will consist of community members, leaders, and experts who will work together to develop and implement strategies to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion in our community. The DEIJB Committee will provide a path for One Concord to collaborate with leaders and bring about positive change for our beautiful Concord. We are eager to work with our city council, working with our mayor, our new mayor, and the community to address the issues that divides us. We believe that by fostering dialogue, promoting understanding, and implementing inclusive policies, we can create a more united and harmonious community. We are committed to bringing positive to our community and creating a future where everyone feels valued, respect, and included. Join us if you would like in our mission to build a stronger, more inclusive Concord. Together, we can create a community where everyone has equal opportunity to drive and to thrive together, and where diversity is celebrated. Let us come together, community. Let us come together and unite, bring about positive within our community, work with our new leaders, find opportunities, and make sure that those opportunities are accessible for everybody in our community. I care about this community so much that I have to give my whole time, my full time, to advocate for anybody, making sure that marginalized communities can have life just like anybody else. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Fisto. And the spark that is in Fisto and leading all of us is something that we need to make sure that we kindle in all of us, and we need more Fistos in the world. Now I would like to introduce James McKim, the president of the Manchester Area NAACP and a DEI consultant, to talk about why DEI is important. A couple little other work things too is there's water in the back if people needs them, and there is water, the restrooms are out to the right and the left. So.
Thank you, David. Hello, everybody. I know you're all wanting to get out of here before 6 o'clock when the storm comes, but hopefully we'll get you out by then. And we'll see if my little clicker works this far away. Does it? Oh, turn it on. It does. All right. So I'm here to do a little bit of level setting because Fisto just threw out a few terms. And in my work, my daytime job is as a management consultant. And I work with organizations with the goal to help ignite their organizational performance. And I like to do that through the alignment of people, process, and technology, which is applicable for organizations, actually, and communities. So I want to delve into some definitions because one of the things that I see in my work, both in my daytime job as a consultant and as president of the Manchester NAACP, that seems to be a challenge is we're not on the same page with definitions of words. So we're going to take a little bit of time to get on the same page with some definitions of words like diversity and equity and inclusion and justice and belonging. And I'm going to start off with a little cartoon. I want to ask you, what's odd about this cartoon?
We don't want diversity.
We all want diversity.
No, I said, sounds like we don't want it if everything's neutral.
Sounds if we, in one hand, this is saying we want to have neutral language while we celebrate diversity. Right? So this is what a lot of people say, right? But what they're not really taking into account is something that psychologists call the paradox of diversity. On one hand, we see ourselves as individuals like nobody else, while at the very same time, we see ourselves just like everybody else. We all breathe the same air, our blood is red. So we're walking paradoxes. And our communities are trying to grapple with us all walking around as paradoxes. How do you know at any one time which of these two perspectives an individual is taking? Do you know whether I'm thinking of myself right now as an individual like nobody else? Or am I thinking of myself as a human being like everybody else? You can't tell, can you? This is the challenge that we face. So I want to talk about the importance of this committee. As Fisto said, we're really pushing to have this committee that will look at diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, and belonging in Concord. And the way I want to do that is starting off with some definitions, but also talking about the importance of diversity in institutions in society. And I've actually given this talk in various bookstores and libraries as a result of the book that I wrote, The Diversity Factor, Igniting Superior Organizational and Community Performance. So I want to start with some demographics, which you may or may not have seen. But this is the world we live in the United States right now. Did you know that 13% of the population of the United States were not born here? Did you know that between 2010 and 2050, the Asian population in the United States will grow by 134%? Did you know that by 2050, Latinos will be almost 30% of the population? Do you know that by 2050, it's projected that the United States will be a majority-minority country? Do you know what that means? Most of the people in this country will not be melanin deficient. Right? The number of people identifying as multiracial has increased by 30% over the last 20 years. 30%. And it's increasing exponentially. 22% of the population will be over 65, and in New Hampshire, there's going to be more than that. 9 million US adults identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender, and 45.3 million people live in poverty in the United States. What does some of this look like in Concord, though? From 2010 to 2022, this is what the demographics of Concord looks like in terms of changes with respect to race and ethnicity. And what you can see, the trend is, and there's been reporting on this, New Hampshire is becoming a more diverse state. Concord is becoming a more diverse city. We need to be able to deal with that. We need to be able to deal with people who are not like us. Not like us as an individual. Because there are going to be more and more of those people coming here because it's great to be in New Hampshire, isn't it? So I want to talk next about some definitions. First of all, the definition of the term diversity. I love the definition that was created by Marilyn Loden when she was at Johns Hopkins Institute in 1991. And she said diversity is really about personality dimensions. And so she came up with this model that she called the diversity wheel, which you're seeing over on the right-hand side here. I apologize, this is not as big as I wanted it to be. I copied a slide that was not quite right. But the notion is that it's all about our personalities, which is why personality is in the middle of that wheel. We have dimensions of our personality that go to the core of who we are, like our race, our gender, our age. Then we have dimensions of our personality that are about how we interact with others, our geographic location. And we're all New Hampshireites, right? It's part of our personality. What's our educational background? What's our income? Are we married? And then there are these organizational or community dimensions. How do we interact in a community? What role do we play? Are we an elder person in the community or a more junior person in the community? So when we say diversity, it's more than just what so many people think of as racial diversity or even gender diversity. Also has to do with way of thinking. Ned Herman identified 4 different thinking styles that we can exhibit. We can exhibit a logical thinking style, a creative thinking style, a practical thinking style, and a relational thinking style. So when we say diversity, when I use the word diversity, I mean all of these things. And I'm going to invite you to use that same definition as we talk. It's not that we don't talk about racial diversity, but I invite you to use the adjective. We're in school, so I got to give you an education, your grammar lesson. Use the adjective, racial diversity, gender diversity. Let's be very specific about what we mean, so we know we're talking the same language. Next, equity. We tend to conflate equity and equality, and there really is a difference. I mean, we all agree that we want to have, as Visa said, equal access, equal opportunity. But does that mean we need to treat everyone equally? What this little cartoon tries to illustrate is, how many of you have seen this little cartoon? Many of you have seen the cartoon. Just about everybody. So what this cartoon is showing is 3 youths of different heights trying to see over a fence to see a ball game. And we've got 3 panels showing different kind of scenes. Which one of these is showing equal treatment of these 3? One to the left? Yes, because each of them is being given the same size box. They're being treated equally. But is that good enough? No. Because while the tallest youth could see over the fence, the smallest youth still cannot see over the fence. So this middle one is what we call equitable treatment. Each is being given assistance based on their need. Which means now all 3 can see over the fence. But there's an interesting situation with this one. What about this tallest youth? We have in our communities people who are represented by this tallest youth who will say, well, you helped everybody else, but you didn't help me. But you didn't need help. So we need to be able to deal with that situation as well, right? But what's this third panel? There's a word that many people use to represent this third panel. Anybody have any idea what that word is?
Discrimination.
This third panel?
We call it justice.
We call it justice.
You eliminate the barrier.
You eliminate the barriers in the first place. You don't have the boards. You don't have to have the boxes. And what we see in organizations and communities is this justice is actually cheaper and better than the other two.
What is that? Nobody can.
Why is that? Well, if you put yourself in the shoes of the ball field, say the ball field's a community, if you don't have to provide assistance, if you don't have to maintain the barriers, it's cheaper. Also, less frustrating for everybody involved. So when we think of equity in our community, we want to think about where are the barriers that are preventing people from living the lives that they want to live. Where are there policies and procedures that are treating people equally when they should be treating people equitably? So that's the equity piece of this. And then we have the inclusion piece. What is inclusion? Well, this is a word cloud that was created based on the response to the question, what words come to mind when you hear inclusion? And you can see the words like diversity and team and community and care and values. Inclusion is both a noun and a verb. It is a noun in the sense that it's a state of being, of inclusion. But it's a verb in that it's an action. Inclusion is an action. And I love the physician's assistant 5th edition definition that says inclusion is the active, intentional, ongoing engagement with people. The active, intentional, ongoing engagement with people. So to be inclusive, we can't just say, well, our door is open. We have to actually invite people into that door. We have to be welcoming. So the notion here is all of these together are required to create a sense of belonging and welcoming in our communities. If you have diversity and equity, but you don't have inclusion, you get cultural assimilation and disengagement. If you have diversity and inclusion but no equity, you get a dominant group or ideology that is deferred to in decision making. Kind of what we have now, so to speak. If you have equity and inclusion but no diversity, then you get similarity and homogeneity. So we need all of these together to create this community sense of belonging. I have a little formula that I've put together to help remember this. Welcoming, inclusive, and high-performing organizations and societies exhibit equal, or equitable, not just equal, equitable inclusion of diverse people. Tie this all together. So when we're thinking about our community, we want to think about how do we bring all of these to bear? How do we bring all of these concepts together using this definition that we've now come to understand? It's a big task. So let's shift a bit and talk a bit more about the community and what the community could look like. Right? How do we know when we're actually living into diversity, equity, and inclusion and having this sense of belonging? When do we know that? What does it look like? So Deloitte & Touche and PricewaterhouseCoopers and another number of organizations have come up with a maturity model that seeks to describe how we know when an organization is an organization that people feel like they belong. And they talk about a center of gravity for the community and the organization, or an organization, or the institution, and they talk about a focus. And what they say is a level 1 organization is only thinking about diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging because they're compelled to by law. And they're only thinking about it to fulfill some kind of regulation. And the center of gravity, the driver, is usually lawyers. The next level up, though, is where we start seeing that we're talking about more than just following the law. We're talking about ensuring that we have diversity in our community, in our institutions. The next level up is where we see that our leaders are recognizing the value of diversity. And they're starting to think more than just about having diversity in our communities and institutions, but how do we leverage that diversity? How do we take advantage of that diversity? Because if you have diversity without actually using it, it's actually worse than having no diversity at all. Yeah.
Just a quick question. So in the first one, emerging,
Yes.
so you talk about like the law, right?
Yes.
And I'm trying to conflict that with the picture of justice. So justice and law are not equal.
They're not the same thing, I guess I would say. Right? Behaving in a just manner is something we all should ascribe to. That doesn't mean that there's a law. I mean, we can get into lots of discussions about morality and ethics too when we talk about this. We don't have quite time, and I'm happy to talk to you about that after, because I'm a philosophy major and I love talking about that stuff. Right? Right? All right. So the highest level that we want our organizations and our communities to look like is called integrated, where we're not even thinking about and really talking about diversity because it's integrated into our DNA. It's second nature. Right? So if we want to think about our communities and how they should operate, we want to strive to reach to the level 4. But here's the catch. Some communities or institutions will never reach level 4. They'll never get to the point where everyone in the organization is second nature. It's second nature to think about or to incorporate these concepts. It takes years just to get to this progressing level. So where do you think Concord is? Basic? Basic level? So what we're hoping that our committee can do is help us define how we're going to move up this ladder. Move up to the next level. And what it means we have to think about is the different levels of our society. From the cultural, which is interpersonal, how do we interact with people at an interpersonal level? How do our systems operate from our institutions with policies and procedures and best practices? And how do our sectors of society operate? From healthcare to criminal justice to education. So the committee that we're hoping gets pulled together is going to be able to deal with each of these 3 levels, which raises the question, what entity houses this committee? Is this a committee of the city government? Or is this a committee that includes city government? That's a question I will leave you with as we start to hear from some of these different perspectives, these different personality dimensions, people who have lived experience with these different personality dimensions. Because that's great food for thought as we think about who should be on this committee. And where should this committee be housed? Who should be the driver of this committee? Do we want to let government drive this committee? Or is this a community-driven committee? So, definitions. Let's all speak the same language and let the conversation continue. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, James. And let me just point out that James and the Greater Manchester NAACP has been a very active participant in the One Concord Coalition since its formation. I apologize. I did make a mistake. I'd like to invite Sharm and Miko to come up and give a land recognition. Sharm, if you could do that.
We are located on Indokina, which is the traditional ancestral homeland of the Abenaki, Pennacook, and Wabanaki peoples, past and present. We acknowledge and honor with gratitude the land and waterways and the Alnabak people who have stewarded Indokina throughout the generations.
Thank you so much. All right, and now I'd like to welcome Mayor Byron Champlin, our new mayor, to come up and to share with us his vision for the DEIJB committee and the future for Concord.
Thank you. Thank you for Fiston for his opening remarks. Thank you for James for the contextualization. I appreciate it. I think that in terms of vision, much of what Fiston said is similar to my vision, that Concord should be, as I said in my remarks on Thursday night, we should be ensuring that the city is a place where everyone feels they belong and can succeed and can contribute to the success, overall success of the city. In terms of the DEIJB committee and in terms of the steering committee that the city has envisioned, city staff is already in the process of pulling together an RFQ to identify a consultant who can work on creating a structure and creating a process for discernment and for identifying what steps we should take in this community in a logical and systematic way. I also have been starting to talk to people about serving on a DEIJB steering committee for the city and identifying prospective steering committee members in order to work with a consultant to hold public meetings and discernment meetings and create recommendations for practical solutions and actions that can be considered by the city council and the city administration as far as their area of purview is concerned. I expect that to be an ongoing process. I expect it to take multiple years, I think at least a couple of years, possibly more depending upon how the work progresses, what's identified, and what steps are taken. I share James's concern about everybody getting out of here before the snow starts to fly heavily. So I also am going to be fairly brief. I'll just conclude by saying that I believe that City of Concord has a deep well of goodwill. That people want to move towards a more equitable posture in the city. And I think a lot of people are willing to roll up their sleeves and work on that process collaboratively, again, seeking practical actions that we can take. So I'm very interested in hearing what everyone else has to say today. Very interested in the public conversation and the dialogue that we'll be engaged in. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk to this group today. So thank you very much. Surely.
Thank you. I recently went to, I'm going to speak up so people can hear me. I recently
Here,
went
take this.
to thank you.
Sure.
Hi. My name is Barbara Cashin, and I recently went to a meeting that FISTO facilitated with leaders in the Concord area who have great expertise already with having tackled issues of equity, diversity in many communities. And I'm wondering, and I think they know how to approach this the problem. So why, can you explain to me what you expect to get out of a consultant that you won't get from knowledgeable members of the community?
Sure. Thanks, Barbara. Thanks for that question. I expect from a consultant to get a process, a structure around which we can have free-flowing and open community conversation, and also a timeline, so we can establish priorities. What's the low-hanging fruit? What are the more difficult challenges that we have to face? Yeah, Zandra.
Thank you. Xander Rice Hawkins. I'm the former city councilor from Ward 10, and I served on the DIJB steering committee along with Byron and then Mayor Poulet. And I actually had that same question as Barbara, so thank you for asking that. The other two pieces of it, the conversation around the DIJB committee at the city level went in spurts, and there were a couple of things that were identified that the committee had left behind. I wanted to see where you're planning to head forward with them. One is there was a list of short-term or low-hanging fruit actions that could be taken more immediately, and I wondered if you had a plan to explore those even in the process of the RFP being put together so that we can get moving on those. The second was a very strongly held belief by members of the community that members of the DIJB committee from the community who were bringing firsthand lived experiences should receive a stipend. It's been 6 months since that conversation. What are your thoughts on that now?
Thanks for the question, Sandra. I would like all of that to be part of the process that we start with the consultant. I would like that to be folded into all of that process. I think that's the most organized way and productive way to do it. Yeah, James.
I think it's important to address the question that Barbara raised. From my work with organizations and communities, there are people who have knowledge about the topic, but there needs to be someone whose day in and day out goal and job is to drive the effort forward. And I think it may not be fair to ask someone from the community to be that person to drive every single minute of the day the effort forward and try to deal with the intricacies of city government. So that's my take on why you need someone who's paid to do it. Just like we're talking about having community people who are involved paid to do it, there needs to be someone paid to drive it day in and day out and suffer the slings and arrows that they're going to get from the community and from city government folks.
And thank you for saying that. That was a much better answer than mine. I mean, I'm on the board of a statewide nonprofit that's looking for an executive director right now, and I argued very strongly that we hire a search consultant for many of the same reasons. You need somebody who is focused, who is driving it, and for whom it's a primary job to do. So thank you, James. I appreciate that. Well, thank you very much again. I really appreciate it, and I really look forward to hearing what the other speakers have to say.
Hello? Oh, thank you, Mayor. Okay, so now we're going to move on to some of the members from the communities that we address. But one little thing is, I do want to just make sure that people are aware that when we're talking about stipends in the DEIJB movement, it isn't payment. These people are already in marginalized communities. It is just to make sure that they are not hurt by asking them to give up their time and energy to work on it. So it's to make them whole, not to reward them. It is not a payment, it's a recompensance for their time, etc., and costs that they have to incur to participate. Just to give you a little feedback on the upcoming speakers, thank you very much. We have asked them all to try to limit their time, again, so we can all get out of here before this storm hits. But we have asked them to bring together the top 3 issues within their communities. And we also need to realize that we can't get at all of the communities here today, and we know that. That's why we are planning on having another listening session on March 9th, place to be determined. But keep that in mind. And now I would like to...
Feedback. Just people be aware that there's going to be an opportunity
Yes.
for feedback.
Yeah, and also there is an opportunity for feedback outside of the door. There is a place, and if you grab a sticky pad or sticky note rather, you can actually give us feedback, but you can also email oneconcord2023@gmail.com. So sorry. I would like to welcome to the stage Rizwana Alangir to speak about workforce issues and DEI.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. I too acknowledge that I'm speaking to you today with honor in the land of the Endekina, who are the ancestral people of the land. And I am Dr. Rizwana Alamgir. My husband's part of the last name is missing, but that's okay. This is who I am. I'm a privileged person. I am employed, I'm gainfully employed. I am also a Canadian who migrated to the United States with gainful employment. And so my situation is not that of the people that I speak for. I am from a racialized community, and therefore I do face the challenges that racialized community people do face. But again, what I will speak about will be based upon due diligence, because I was asked to speak for 5 minutes on workforce issues for new community. I will try to build it along the lines of somebody moving to the United States, moving to Concord, New Hampshire, and why they would choose it, and what is available for somebody choosing Concord and what is not. So really from that perspective. So we all hear about affordable housing and housing crisis and so on. So we'll come there, but even assuming that none of that exists, one of the main challenges that the people that I spoke to face, that I really didn't face, luckily because I'm Canadian, I came with a car, I converted my driver's license. But for those who are not as privileged as myself, when they moved to Concord, New Hampshire, challenges they faced include not having rapid access transit to get to work on time, on a normal day, and on an abnormal day, such as a windy day or a rainy day or a, you name it, right? It becomes even more challenging. So things that I've heard are, well, I've never budgeted for Uber 2 times a week on a winter day, on a winter week. I've not planned for that, and now I have to pay for that in order to get to work and then to come back from work, to be on time. So things that I bring from my past life. I used to be I used to work for the federal government of Canada, but as a sidekick role, I was the co-champion for anti-racism, diversity, and inclusion, so similar to some of what we do here, or will be doing here, I'm hoping. So not from that perspective at all, but just from my previous life, what I have noticed is that we lack adequate bus stops in every neighborhood. And so in order for somebody to get to a workplace, if there are challenges that, how am I even gonna get to the bus stop so that I can get the bus on time and get to work on time, that is a challenge in and of itself. So we need more bus stops in every, like the thought process should be, how can I have somebody to walk maximum 5 minutes to get to a bus stop? I know it's a big challenge, but we can get there if we really think about it. So that's one of the things I've heard. The second thing, which is the first thing that I was going to come to, which everybody will probably likely talk about, is housing. So I had my own challenges. I come with the acknowledgement that I'm extremely privileged. I bought a home, which was not an easy process because, again, there's a lack of housing, even when you're buying a home. But then for those who are not as privileged as myself, we've had many people follow us, and they simply would not find a rental home. And when they did find a rental home, the prices were exorbitant. They would get a basement room for like $600, and then now you can layer on top of that affordability. So when you are looking into a house that is affordable, it's actually it's an impoverished condition that you're dealing with. There's mold, there's substance, there's like in the common areas, there's through the venting system, a lot of, you can smell cigarettes and so on. So there's a lack of quality when you're actually going into affordable homes. So you layer the problem, so there's a lack of housing, but even if you get housing and if it's affordable, there's a lack of quality. And why is that? Because number one, we're not building enough. We have a lot of old buildings that have been built many, many years ago. They've been refurbished from the outside. But what exists inside those drywalls, nobody really investigates. So there's a lot of that deter people from moving to Concord, and they make their choices to accept the job offers based on also whether they have a home. And now add to that the fact that when somebody moves, unless they're a single person who is making the choice for themselves. If they're moving with a family, they need to have 2 jobs. If there's a partner, they need to have amenities that their children can avail. And so this part is my third point, which I will break into 2. The first is, how do you get your children to get engaged in the community? How do they feel like they belong? So that, and if they're racially identifiable, that makes it a lot more challenging, I will say. But how do you get them to be good participants in the society? How do you get them to have civic participation? And I will just give a little bit of an anecdote. I'm a Muslim woman. My son is a Muslim teenager. When he came here, his identity was that I am a Muslim person. So what can I do to make myself look like a Canadian Muslim? So he started wearing those long robes to school. And I said, please don't do that. Please. People will think you're a terrorist, even though not all Muslims are terrorists. But it's just the stereotype that we deal with. So I'm telling you how it is coming in as a person of color with identifiable social or sort of innate nature, and then you want to hold on to what you have. So then you come to this part. How do you get this child or your children to be participants in the community? One of my past experiences was to work on a file that was called the Canada Summer Jobs. What it did was it engaged all youth, starting from 12, as early as 12, till when you can go on, and they provided employment, gainful employment, through office jobs. We allow children to work from 14 in market basket. We see a lot of teenagers working. That is not what we're talking about. We're talking about giving credit to children for civic participation and getting them involved gainfully towards the community so that together they can do something. They feel like they belong. And that's where people like my children will come in handy. I know there's things that are coming through, but this is, I think, something we need to think about from a policy perspective. How do we get youth involved in the communities? And then as part of, again, the family umbrella is, then what do these children do? These fidgety, jittery children on computer screens, like playing games all the time. We all face those challenges. We don't want them to do that. We want them to be involved in many other things. And so, do we have enough parks? Can my 10-year-old who's right here go and run to the neighborhood park and hang from monkey bars? Unfortunately not, unless you live next to White Park or the other 2 parks that are insufficient to grow the population here in Concord, New Hampshire. I will say, the neighborhood I lived in, I'm not kidding you, just 30 seconds from my house there was a park. You walk more, another 3.5 minutes, there would be another park. There was a dog park in the corner. There were 2 other parks that you would get to another 5 minutes back. So that may be an exaggeration in terms of like, okay, do we really need so many? Yes, you do, because you want the community to be together. You want the children to be together. You want the parents to know each other. You want to say hi. You want to share a cup of coffee. That's how you get people engaged. That's how you get people to belong. And that's how you get the workforce that you want to attract. That's all I would like to say. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Uzrana. That was awesome. Well, we have both bad and good news. We have a few folks that weren't able to show up and join us today, so we're going to go a little bit out of order. I would love to invite Manisha Patel to come up and speak about education. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Great, thanks for being here today. It's a nice opportunity for us to all connect, and gives me an opportunity to talk a little bit about education. Honorable Mayor Champlin, respected guests, Mr. McKim, and fellow community members. My name is Manisha Patel, and I speak to you today as a Concord resident and a dedicated volunteer at New American Scholars, an organization committed to bridging the educational divide for refugee children in our community. I want to shed a little bit of light on the significant challenges that refugee children are facing, not just in Concord, but throughout the state in the 3 years that I volunteered with New American Scholars. You know, in Concord, we pride ourselves as being a city of diversity and opportunity. However, our current educational framework is failing a vital segment of our community, our refugee children. I'd like to highlight just some of the challenges that they face. First is misplacement in schools. Our current educational system places refugee children in grades according to their age, even when there's been disruption in their schooling. It often results in these students being placed in classes where work is too advanced, leading to frustration and disengagement. Imagine the struggle of a child eager to learn, but unable to grasp the material and keep up with his or her classmates, feeling lost and behind. The absence of after-school programs for remedial education widens this gap. These programs are crucial in helping these children catch up to their American-born peers. New American Scholars is striving to fill this void. We've enrolled over 240 students and have a dedicated team of 50 educational volunteers and tutors. We've assembled that in just under 3 years. The need is far and wide, and we have a waiting list that we cannot meet. We cannot do this alone, and we need a citywide initiative to ensure that no child is left behind. Thirdly, the scarcity of ESL teachers and paraprofessionals in our schools has led to inadequate language support for these students. Many receive only minimal instruction once or twice a week for 30 minutes or 40 minutes. It's a barrier that not only hinders their current academic progress, but also their future prospects, leading to higher education and career opportunities. The implications of these and other educational challenges are far-reaching. New Hampshire currently faces a critical labor shortage with significant gaps between open jobs and available workers. Access to higher education is a crucial stepping stone for career advancement and economic stability. However, it remains out of reach for many refugee youth, primarily due to insufficient academic support in their formative years. They often graduate from high school without meeting the minimal standards in reading and writing required for college courses. This not only limits their career perspectives, but also affects our community's ability to develop diverse and skilled workforce equipped to fill high-paying jobs and specialized roles. In overlooking the educational needs of our refugee youth, we're doing more than just failing these young individuals. We're missing a critical opportunity to nurture a capable and diverse workforce. Such a workforce is essential to revitalizing our local economy and ensuring the sustained economic health of our city. I fully support the formation of a committee under the auspices of the City Council that focuses on identifying, addressing, and resolving issues such as education faced by underrepresented groups. It will ensure that these critical issues remain in the spotlight and are given the attention and resources that they deserve. Finally, let's remember that education is more than just imparting knowledge. It's about building futures, strengthening communities, and creating a society where every child, irrespective of their background, has the opportunity to succeed. Let's give our refugee families a reason to call Concord home, a place where they and their children can thrive and contribute to a shared future. Thank you.
Thank you, Manisha. Next, I'd like to ask up Landrine Tumani to speak about New American Young Adults and other educational issues.
Hello, hi. My name is Landrine, and I won't be too long, but I'll start by saying I'm from Africa, originally from Congo, raised in Rwanda. I came here as a refugee when I was 11 years old, so I've been here for like 10 years. Yeah, and today I'll be speaking about the lack of access to resources. Today I want to talk about a very important problem that has been affecting our school system and the city as a whole for a long time. The main issue I see is that marginalized communities, especially those from low income backgrounds and minority groups, do not have the same access to resources and opportunities. This inequality in our education system not only keeps the gap between different groups of people, but also prevent many individuals in our communities from succeeding. Give me 1 second, guys. I don't know why I'm breathing so hard. It is disheartening to see how our current policies and practices fail to meet the needs and challenges faced by marginalized students, such as me. From not enough funding for schools in undeserved neighborhoods to a lack of diverse and culturally responsive curriculum, there are many barriers to success. As a result, many talented students are left behind and cannot reach their full potential because of circumstances beyond their control. As someone who has personally experienced unfairness and discrimination in our school system, I know how damaging it can be for young people. It is disheartening to see capable students being ignored or dismissed simply because they come from different backgrounds. But I believe that we can do better. We need to examine our current system and identify the areas that need urgent changes. This requires a comprehensive approach that addresses not only the educational disparities, but also the social and economic factors that contribute to them. First, we need to ensure that schools and communities have equal funding and resources. This means providing more support to schools in undeserved areas and locating resources based on need. Equal access to resources will allow schools to hire qualified teachers, provide necessary materials and technology, and offer a wide range of extracurricular activities for holistic development. Additionally, we must prioritize a curriculum that is diverse and inclusive, reflecting the experiences and contribution of all individuals regarding to their background. This will help students develop a deeper understanding and appreciation for different cultures and perspectives, promoting empathy and social cohesion. Creating a supportive and inclusive school environment is also crucial. All students should feel valued, respected, and safe. This requires investing in professional development for teachers and staff so that they can address their unique needs of diverse students population. It is also involves implementing restorative justice practices that prioritize dialogue, understanding, and reconciliation instead of punishment. However, addressing educational disparities and creating a more inclusive school system cannot be done by schools only. It requires a collective effort from the entire communities, parents, community leaders, businesses, policymakers must come together to advocate for change, allocate resources, and hold institutions accountable. As a community, we have a responsibility to uplift and empower each other, ensuring that no one is left behind. By working together, we can bridge the gap and create a positive relationship between our schools and the community. This collaboration will not only benefit marginalized students, but also contribute to the overall growth and prosperity in our city. In conclusion, the lack of access to resources and opportunities for marginalized communities in our school system is a pressing issue that needs immediate attention. While I may not have all the answers, I am committed to raising awareness about this issue, working with the DEIGB committee and advocating for change. It is time for us to challenge the current situation, break down system barriers, and create more fair and inclusive education system for everyone. If not now, when? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Irene. That was awesome. It makes me recognize the importance of all the value that the folks that we want to be on the committee and why we want to make sure that they're able to be there. Another reason for the stipends, so that people who otherwise can't participate are allowed to, so that we can have their knowledge and expertise and experience. I'd like to next invite up Karen Joal, and I apologize to everyone if I've bastardized your names in any way. But Karen is going to speak about the senior community here in Concord.
Well, thank you everybody for showing up today. I was asked to speak about issues that seniors might be facing in Concord. I mean, I've lived in Concord for a good number of years, probably over 25. And now that I'm the age that I am, things change. So I just put together a few thoughts. One of the vulnerabilities of seniors is being invisible. I don't need to explain to anyone in this room what I mean by that. And I know that you all understand the effects of invisibility on health, especially mental health. I'm going to just address very briefly some data that I got from the 2019 New Hampshire Healthy Aging data summary. And what it does is it takes it looks at all these indicators on all forms of health statewide, and then it lists the local city and town. So you can pull up Concord, and you can see, how does Concord fare compared to the rest of the state on these zillion indicators. So I'm going to address some of those, but before I do that, just in general, as a state, New Hampshire ranks 3rd as the healthiest state for older people in the United States. Did not know that. 3rd. So that, that's good news, right? But again, it depends on, like everything, where you live, and lots of other factors. But New Hampshire is definitely growing older. We have one of the highest median ages in the country, only second to Maine. I didn't know that either, so Byron knows that. And so Concord, just like the rest of the state, we have a growing number of residents who are 60 years of age or older. Right now, it's approximately 1 in 5 people, so about 21% of Concord's population compared to about 23% of statewide. So we're right in the ballpark.
Karen, do we get positive points for having a senior as a mayor?
Oh, okay, yes, we have a senior as a mayor, that helps, right? So you're aware of these issues. But I was just going to say Concord has done a good job with seniors on many levels. To name just a few assets, we have at least one senior center and several programs for seniors through the city parks and rec. And I know these elementary schools, I know this school and Broken Ground support pen pals between kids and seniors. But according to that data that I referred to earlier, they show that Concord's older residents, now these are people 60 and up, fare better on some healthy aging indicators, such as lower rates of heart disease and leukemias and lymphomas. However, we had much higher rates of obesity, depression, anxiety, substance use disorders, along with other several mental health indicators. And particularly concerning is when you looked at the behavioral health indicators, out of 10 of them in total, Concord rated, they ranked them like with a W or B meaning best and W meaning worse. Concord unfortunately ranked worse on 8 of them when compared to the statewide estimates. So, and of the highest one, the rate of depression, followed by anxiety disorders, and then also PTSD and substance use disorders. You know, I'm not going to go into the whys, but certainly as I started out by saying, you know, when you're invisible, there's always prices to be paid. So I don't need to remind everyone here that it's not a zero-sum game. When we solicit the gifts of every population, we all stand to benefit. The places that, like Concord, that nurture healthy aging, that support older people, also do enrich the lives of others, right? So one example is, you know, when places took away the curbs because people with walkers and wheelchairs could get around much easier without the curbs. Well, it also obviously benefited young parents of children in strollers. So that my point is that we all benefit when we are inclusive. And I'm just going to end briefly with this quote, because, you know, all these, I mean, so many of these issues are connected, right? This is taken from a book that I recently read. It's called How to Know a Person, written by David Brooks. Human beings need recognition as much as they need food and water. No crueler punishment can be devised than to not see someone, to render them unimportant or invisible. The worst sin towards our fellow creatures is not to hate them, George Bernard Shaw wrote, but to be indifferent to them. That's the essence of inhumanity. To do that is to say you don't matter and you don't exist. Seniors do want to be visible. Seniors are an important, valuable resource to Concord, and by including us more, it's everybody benefits. Thank you.
Thank you so much, so much. All right, now I would like to invite Stephen Kidder to come up. He's going to share with us some information on the LGBTQ community that's growing up here in Concord, right?
Yeah.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, David. Sorry. Give me just a moment. Here we go. Okay. For those who don't know me, my name is Stephen Kidder. My pronouns are he, him, his. I was born and raised here in Concord. I went to Broken Ground School right next door before there ever was a Mill Brook. I'm here to talk to you about my experience as a queer person and the issues me and my community face. I love Concord, but the Concord of today is not the Concord I grew up in. That is because I don't feel safe being myself. The first time I was harassed on the street was actually just last summer. I was walking down Main Street and was harassed by a group of men. That was the first time I felt unsafe in my town. And unfortunately, it wasn't the last. Since then, I now carry a box cutter in case I need to defend myself. Young Stevie would have never had that concern. Existing as a queer person in Concord and New Hampshire at large has become terrifying. We have neo-Nazis flyering and recruiting on our main streets. Teetotaler, a delicious queer-owned coffee shop downtown, has been targeted at least 5 times since it's opened. A local teacher was harassed by a community member simply for existing authentically. Safety is my main concern, but please understand that that doesn't mean more police. We need to rethink safety away from just increasing police budgets and police presences, because for me, police don't make me feel safe. In fact, police make me feel unsafe. And that's the case for a lot of marginalized people. When Teetotaler was targeted by NSC 131, a New England-based neo-Nazi organization, in June of 2023, the police did nothing about it. As these Nazis were banging on the window during a drag queen story hour, the police just stood by. What does that show our children? It shows them that they cannot be themselves, and if they do, they risk persecution. Other issues that queer people face are housing, specifically for those who are transgender and non-binary. We need safe spaces for queer people to gather. The way we solve this issue and these issues is multifaceted. We need a DIJB committee, yes, but we also need so much more. We need to hold our elected officials accountable and invest in the future that we want to see. If you're looking for a way to get involved, join us at One Concord and reach out to your local representatives. While I'm talking to you about this, please reach out to your state rep and tell them how you feel. Tell them to vote against HB 396, that if it goes into effect will ban gender-affirming care for youth. Tell your New Hampshire senator to vote against SB 341 if it passes, because if it passes, it will forcibly out children. New Hampshire truly should be the live-free state. Instead, it is to let me, parens, white, cis, heterosexual, able-bodied, affluent people, to live free. But you can't, those who are marginalized. Which is how it feels for me, and I imagine how it feels for a lot of marginalized people. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Steve. That was great. All right. I would now like to invite Gana Sharma up to speak for the Nepalese community. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Mayor, Superintendent, City Councilors, and all the personnel, great personnel over here in the room. Thank you for inviting me.
Speak into the mic.
Yes, I will. Actually, I am not Nepalese. I am Bhutanese. And Bhutanese, sorry about that. Bhutanese member did not come. I think I did not see him. And I will summarize everything about, no, I'm not focusing only on our community, Bhutanese community. I am speaking for in general. Prior to that one, I have very simple experience in the past. There are 2 of them that I can share, and probably everybody will understand, and then we will go from there. I work at Concord High School. This is my 16th year. And then it was in, already I have shared with some of our folks in some of the meeting, not some of, only one. It was in 2009. It was the second day of my employment, and then I parked my car, and just took out my key, and then I was trying to walk to my office in the school, and then one of our co-workers said that I was so new at that time. Little bit of English, maybe I used to speak English well, but even then, because of accent and something, hey, this is Concord High School parking lot. And I said, no, I'm an employee here. Just I was trying to take out my badge, and so I trying to show, no, this is Concord High School parking lot. Okay. Then what I said, no, I work here. I'm going. This is Concord High School parking lot. Several times, my colleagues tried to. Colleagues means I did not know properly. I was so new there, and what I thought, I don't want to hurt her feeling. Instead, I got into my car and just pretended that I was starting it, and she left. She went and crossed the bridge, and then after that, just I went around and parked in the same parking lot and get to my work that day. This is the reason that employment diversity is important in each institution. This is one of our issues here in Concord. Employment diversity, because at that time I was only the one there that probably other people, they do not know that this kind of particular kind of people will teach in school. That is the thing that I thought, because I was completely new, and I had a little bit of English, but I am expertise in mathematics. I am BSc from India. And second issue, I am Concord Multicultural Festival Co-Director. Another example, without example I never talk about this issue. In 2015 or 16, I was in welcome booth in downtown on the day of Concord Multicultural Festival that occurs every year in September. And one of the gentlemen came and he said that we are New Hampshire taxpayer. We do not like any of those things. Okay, thank you. And I said, do you pay the tax exactly on April 15, sir? And he was so mad and he left. It means that our city, our greater Concord needs a diversity license so that we have no issue. I have only 2 things to share. Thank you so much for giving opportunity, Festo.
Thank you so much. Manisha Patel would just like to ask a
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt the flow, everyone, but I have to get going. Just a quick announcement. New American Scholars has partnered with Concord High School to run a reading and writing program for refugee students at the school. If you are interested in being a tutor for the program, I'm going to leave our business cards right at the desk on the way out. It is an incredibly rewarding experience and a wonderful opportunity to support and make a difference in these young lives. So if you just have even 1 hour a week, we could use your help. Okay? So thank you again, everyone.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I would love to welcome Lisa Bedoin with the disabilities community.
Really excited to be here. I've been working in Concord for several years, and now I have the privilege to be a neighbor to all of you. I moved to Concord officially on September 1st. My name is Lisa Bodwin. I'm very appreciative for the opportunity to share some thoughts with you today on the challenges that people with disabilities face. Please know I am not speaking for the entire disability community. That is not possible. To know one person with a disability is to know one person with a disability. I am the parent of a 20-something adult. Our society labels him as a person with an intellectual disability. That's a societal definition. I am a disability policy and equity professional who works alongside people with disabilities and their families, and I also have an acquired physical disability. So I happen to be really familiar with the data on disability, and I have a lot of lived experience in the community. I was sitting at an IEP team meeting in a different district with my son when he was a freshman. He had finished the 8th grade with level 1 French, and he and the French teacher and the principal, we were all sitting in a special French class meeting 3 weeks into the first semester, and we spoke French, right? We spoke French at home, and he was struggling because French 1 in high school goes way quicker than he could keep up with, but he spoke French. She leaned over, put her hand on me, and said, "Oh, honey, I don't know why you are so concerned. He is not going to college anyway. Why does he need to be in that French class with us?" The principal was sitting there, and that was system-wide ableism because it went unchecked. She made an enormous presumption 2 weeks into the semester about his capacity to go to college. He had just spoken a full conversation in French the summer before with the hotel concierge in Paris. And because he wasn't writing in French quickly enough, she projected her assumptions and they went unchecked. So, ableism is discrimination based on disability. It is an insidious, invisible scourge, not unlike what seniors face. It isn't referenced as much as the other isms, yet people with disabilities have the worst life outcomes in every metric measured. People with disabilities are the largest identified protected class in the United States and in New Hampshire, yet ableism never rolls off the tongues of elected officials or celebrities. The unconscious bias that people with disabilities face pervades every aspect of life and leaves people with disabilities as though they are perpetual children, not competent lifelong learners like the rest of us, and are the most wildly untapped and undertapped pool of human potential by employers. We have a state starving for entry-level workers, and yet the blinding glasses of ableism prevent us from seeing a person rather than their disability, and we are failing to support employers to onboard, recruit, retain, and retain people with disabilities. So that's a problem. Ableism makes it hard for us to see a person and not just their disability. As I've said, there is person-mediated ableism and there is system-level challenges for people with disabilities. I'm gonna say something. This is a tough one, and I'm told I can't give any solutions. We're just talking about the big challenges. The big challenge is segregated education for students with disabilities. It is contrary to research. It is contrary to known best practice for all students, when all students are learning together, all students net higher social, emotional, and academic outcomes. This is a real and substantive lack of a culture of belonging and inclusion in general education classrooms, in our school buildings, and district-wide, for students with disabilities and for students without disabilities. Those students are not my students. I have heard a Concord School District teacher say this. That sends out layers of unspoken messages to students without disabilities about the value and competence of their peers with IEPs. The data is clear. Concord is below state targets for inclusion in regular education classrooms and is heading in the wrong direction. In the interest of time, I will not share the data that I have on my iPad, because y'all have been here for a long time, but I can share it with One Concord, and the data is not good when it comes to indicator 5 on the state performance plan for students having access to general education classrooms. And if you're interested in talking about the state performance plan and all their indicators, be happy to sit down with you. Where is a universal culture of belonging for students with disabilities in Concord? How can we expect Concord's future business owners, Little League coaches, and Rotarians to include citizens with disabilities as valued neighbors, coworkers, and friends when their public education system teaches them that those students are not educable enough to sit alongside them in a general education classroom setting for 80% or more of the day? That is rugged. You cannot hire someone to work for your small business in Concord who has a disability if they weren't in your history class with you, if they weren't in your English class getting support, if they weren't seen as a potential science partner. I have an answer, but I can't tell you about it because we're only talking about challenges. And it's not a new invention, and it works in tons of other school districts. So 2 other quick issues. Affordable housing crisis most severely impacts people with disabilities and their families and their paid support staff whose rates of pay are Medicaid reimbursement rates. The workforce shortage is the 3rd issue. I would like to mention the workforce issue around the lack of paraprofessionals. Concord has 10 openings right now, and y'all pay $16.56 to $22.28 an hour. These are our state's most vulnerable students. I might take a job at Walmart or Burger King because the pay and the benefits supersedes what the paraprofessionals are paid, and certainly that's not an indication that you value the incredible support that they provide to students who need to be staged for success when they're leaving high school, and they need that support. And with 10 openings at a pay rate of around $17 or $18, I don't know how we can be demonstrating a commitment to students with disabilities if we're not willing to pay their staff. The same is true for direct support professionals, personal care attendants, and LNAs. This not only hurts the people with disabilities, but also it hurts, by extension, the family members who are running small businesses, working at the banks here in town, who, okay, I have less than a minute. So there are ripple effects when support staff for people with disabilities are not valued through pay and given status as doing important work. So let's envision a Concord where a 9th grade new American from Nigeria who experiences Down syndrome is learning alongside his or her peers or their peers in history class with the support of a para whose wages can afford to rent an apartment in Concord.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for that little exercise. That was great. We are all about little surprises, and we have another one. Oops, sorry. I'd like to actually ask Kate West to come up and speak to us about housing here in Concord.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. I'm pretty sure that after James's presentation, a lot of us are saying, how do we get to that integration phase as a community? We want to be at level 4. How do we change the culture of Concord and of our representatives so that this type of work is second nature and it is threaded through everything that we do. When I think about cultural transformation, I think about willingness. When I started therapy, one of the things that I learned is that therapy only works if you want to do it, if you want to be there, if you want to make those changes. And so, like therapy, I think what is a barrier to willingness for a lot of folks is whether or not their basic needs are being met. If you are unable to find a place to live, if you are unable to feed yourself or access medical care or get a good night's sleep, your ability to engage in cultural transformative behavior changes is greatly compromised. So as a community, I do believe that meeting the basic needs of our community members is one of the most important steps. So as it relates to housing, I think that a lot of us know that our definition of affordable is not affordable, right? So when we say affordable housing, what does that actually mean? When you look at what's considered a livable wage for a single person with one child in the state of New Hampshire, you would need to be making about $35 an hour. $35 an hour if you want to be able to have a livable wage and be able to afford a place to live here. Does that sound like the average wage of most of our community members here? I think that when I think about pushing forward with what Zandra had discussed, those short-term actions that the City Council has discussed previously. They've had listening sessions with the community previously. And we know that there are some things, I'm gonna put this down, hold on. I'm gonna tell a quick story, I promise it's relevant. My youngest brother used to have my mom do his laundry for a lot of his life. And a part of how that happened was he would tell my mom he didn't know how to do the laundry. And so my mom would go to work and hope that he would do it and come home and it would still be there for her to do. And he would continuously say, I don't know how, I need you to show me how, I need you to do it for me. And what we call that is weaponized feigned incompetence. And I think that in terms of how this applies is basically this. When you self-assess and you recognize that there's a problem, it is wonderful and necessary to ask for help, to recognize where your shortcomings are, to know that you need to be advised. And there are also things that you do know how to do, steps that you can take on your own to get you towards a solution. So I apologize if this is a bit rambly because I didn't realize I'd be speaking to you. But I think the main point that I'm trying to make is this. I would hope that the City Council, in forming this DEIJB committee, would consider doing a self-assessment, because I'm sure that there are ways that the city has pushed initiatives and procedures and policies forward in an effort to create a more inclusive and welcoming Concord. And then I would also want the city to self-assess where the problems and shortcomings are. And I would hope that the city would reconsider moving forward with initiatives without the need of that consultant right away. I think that if you have found that you've listened to your community members, they've told you what the problems are, you recognize that they're short-term, easily accessible goals for the city to solve, that is what elected officials are elected to do. There's a part of it that is necessary. You definitely may need guidance, but I think also an all or nothing, and we won't do anything until we have advisory is an abdication of responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Again, I have to humbly apologize because Clement Kikugu from the Overcomers is actually here, and I would love to have him come up and speak about New American Adults in the Overcomers. I'm so sorry, we sneaked in.
Hello everybody, my name is Clement, Executive Director of Overcomers Refuge Services, but I'm also Senior Pastor of Overcomers Church of God. I didn't really prepare the speech, but I would just share my experience and my story. It's very hard to speak when you know, last person to speak, but I know. There is one more person. Oh, there's one more person? Okay, I'll be really brief. So, as I said, I came here as refugee or asylum seeker. And I'm pretty sure most of you knows about the refugee. So my big issues that I saw in this community, it's a really lack of knowledge. There's so many people that they don't know the difference between immigrant, refugee, documented people. So due to the newspaper, the politics, they took all the refugee as the people who came here, they're danger, they're, I don't know how to define, but I need to tell you that the refugee who came here, they didn't come for the opportunities, they didn't come here to harm this country, they came here because of a reason. Let's give you my story, and then I shared this story with many people. So I, from Rwanda, but I grew up in Congo. I went to Rwanda after genocide. So I went to college, I had my college degree, I started working, helping the victims of genocide, HIV and war. After 8 years in office, leading the non-profit organization, I was only one person, and then I left when we had 30 people working in that organization. So I had money, I was very established, I had my colleague, my church, my country, the food that I like. But one day I was forced to leave and left my family behind and came here in Concord. So I came here and lived 1 year and a half before my family joined me. So it was very hard to leave my country, where I have my colleague, my co-worker, my church, my neighbor, everything that I liked. But I was forced to come in this country. And I came with only hope that I will live again and I will join, my family will join me. So I shared this story with many refugees. So the refugee left their country because of war, violation, and other reasons. Most of them goes to refugee camp where they live for 10, 15, and 20 years. As Sandrine said, I think she was born in Rwanda and grown up and came here when she was 11 years old. There's a people who was born in refugee camp and became 20 years. They don't even know their country, their language, and everything else. So when they came here, there's a challenges with the language. So many people, when they see us, they just see, oh, they're refugee, they need help, stuff like that. But when we came here, as I said in my personal story, I came here with zero English, but I had knowledge to do other stuff, to help people. So I went to Second Star to learn English. And then I was having 2 jobs and going to Second Star to learn English. After that, I became medical interpreter and caseworker and an employment specialist. And I started my own organization, which really grew, and also, oversees the church, Overcomers Church of God. Now, after COVID-19, one of my friends who is an engineer from Texas came to see me. I gave him a part-time job, and so he didn't have really something to do. So we start another organization to help people with disability. Now we have almost 20 people that we gave a job that's taking care of the people with disabilities. This means that when refugees are here, they have so much potential. It's not just we're here to get the help, food stamp, Medicaid, or other stuff. We're here to contribute to this society. So it's really important that people should be more flexible and see what the potential is in us, what we can contribute in this community, than just seeing us as people who need help. There's people, we all have different capacity. In the Bible, I'm Christian, the Bible says when Jesus sent people, they give some, 5 talents and 3 talents and 1. And the Bible says each one according to their ability. So if there's no one to come and clean this room, nobody's gonna come back here. So, which means we need every forces. We have so many people who can do their job, cleaning, agriculture, custodian at Concord Hospital, there's people who work there. So, those people are very necessary in the community. Not only the doctors or engineer or whatever position it is, but also the people who can take care of elders. We have so many people who work at ESSLs, community bridges. Those are necessary people to be here in this state. So the issue is housing. Housing became big issues. People are really moving out of states because they cannot afford to pay the rent. There's always say, affordable housing. But when you see affordable housing, it's not really affordable housing. People cannot afford. We have so many people now who are kicking out from Concord Garden because they have high income, but the high income is not enough to rent outside apartment. So mayor and everybody else really need to think about it and found the solution. Otherwise, people will move out of state, and the elders and other, entry-level job, we never have people to do those kind of jobs. And it's really needed. So I help people to get a job, and all the companies have been calling us, do you have people? Do you have people? We don't have people. Because, everybody are moving to other states. That's pretty much what I wanted really to share. And also people, in regard of racism. Racism, it's really human things. It's not only American. I experienced racism when I was in Congo, even in Rwanda, even here in America. So it's very hard for me to really say racism or discrimination, because I always feel like I am responsible. I have a duty to tell people who I am, that I should not be discriminated. Because I'm human beings, I have everything that anybody else has. So we all need to respect each other. When I meet someone in the street or store or everywhere else, they say, oh, you came here for opportunity. So this is my opportunity then to tell the person my story. So that way he will know me, who I am, and what I have, and what I can contribute. Not just see me as black or refugee or whatever. So my really duty is to tell people that we are all human beings. We are all equals. We can help each other. And I've been really very successful in that. When I started the organization, I didn't have the money, I didn't have knowledge to start the organization due to, language barriers. But it takes a village. So I have many friends in Concord. People supported me as much as I can. That's why it's very hard for me to say racism or other stuff, because I have so many people who came out and helped me, and I really, really appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Clement. And as I said, there is one more person, Sharm Amiko, if you could come up. Sharm will be speaking about marginalized youth. Sharm's with the Project Story, and Sharm is also one of the main powers behind One Concord. She has been here from the beginning and keeps us going. So thank you, Sharm.
Thanks, David. Thank you, everyone. I'd like to introduce Chelsea. This is the the future mayor of Concord. Right here. But I just want to give Chelsea an opportunity to kind of give a little bit of her experience to the group. Right? Okay, so anyway, let me start off by saying that my name is Sharm, and I started Project Story, which stands for Supporting Talents of Rising Youth. I mainly focus on empowering new American youth in our community, and I formed Project Story because I noticed that this group, particularly the new American youth that I was around, and I was just around and kind of started becoming friends with their community, I noticed that there were huge barriers to accessibility in so many different areas for kids, which really bothered me. These are our future leaders. This is our future here. And it's not just like kids, it's kids that really want to learn. It's really smart kids. It's really motivated, really talented kids. And there were literally so many barriers for them to do something simple like play basketball. They couldn't, the way that our community is structured is some kids in our community can't even sign up to play sports because they don't understand the language or they don't understand how to. They don't have transportation. They don't have the $55 that Parks and Rec is charging to pay. And so even something as simple as signing up to play after school sports, they can't even do that. Something that a lot of my young people have been dealing with, and Chelsea's one of them, and maybe this is where you want to kind of chime in, is accessibility right in their own neighborhood. There are so many kids that live on Loudon Road. Chelsea lives on Loudon Road, literally right across the street from Keach Park and that beautiful community center that sits there. Chelsea cannot access it. She can't. Why? That's my question. I've been asking this question for 3 years. Why can't kids access the community center that's across the street from their house? Why do I have to go there and bring them? Why do I have to make a reservation and pay? Why do I have to be there and supervise them? Why can't we provide a place where they can go? To me, this is absolutely absurd. So even Chelsea, like to go over to Keach Park, you guys, many of you are familiar with the Keach Lights issue, which is, thankfully going to get remedied. But just something simple like, maybe it was a month and a half ago or something, and we, of course, couldn't find a place to do anything. So it was warm enough, so I said, okay, everybody, let's head over to Keach Park. We're gonna run a little soccer game for an hour. We did that, it was great, until one of the kids comes up and is like, Sharm, I can't find a bathroom. And I'm like, what? There's porta potties, and then I look and I'm like, there's no porta potty at Keach Park. There's nowhere for you to use the bathroom. Like, what, you know what I mean? So even something simple as basic needs, these kids can't even go to the park and use the bathroom because there's no porta potty there. I happen to live right near White's Park. I drive by it every day. There's a porta potty there. So I'm just wondering why Keach Park doesn't have the accessibility that they need. These kids all summer long, right? And Chelsea can speak to it. In the summer, what happens is there's this window of, I think it's a week or something, but there's a window of a week where kids don't really have much to do. It's like right before the summer programs start. And then that's the kids that actually can get into the summer programs. What I'm finding is the minute school ends, all these kids, they have nothing to do in the summer. So I literally have started setting up in the summer. I just show up from 10 to 2 and say, okay, what kids want to show up? What kids need, want to do something? first they have like 20 kids showing up. You know, I mean, the kids want to be there, they want to learn, they want to do things and to be part of activities, but for various reasons or another, there are barriers for literally young people to participate in camps, to participate in sports, to get water and to access to use the bathroom at their own community park. That is absolutely absurd to me, and it's extremely troubling. We have worked for, I don't know, I feel like I've been advocating and asking for years to try to get space at the community center for these kids. Even something like open gym, they have put so many rules and regulations in. Okay, well they can come to open gym, but they have to be 16 or older to be by themselves. Well, that doesn't necessarily work for our young people, the young people that I work with. They don't. So it's like rule after, so even something as simple like this summer, let me give you another example. I'm trying to take some of the kids to swim at the local pool, and all of a sudden I'm being told, no, you can't bring in these kids. I had like 3 kids, you can't bring them in. While I'm watching moms bring in like 6 kids, you know, so again, like, and so I had to literally take the 3 kids back that I was with, all these new American young kids, and they literally were crying. They literally were crying because we couldn't access the pool that day. So it's like they set all of these different rules in so that we cannot access it. Even sometimes something simple as I actually rented out the gym once, and then probably 10 minutes in, I'm getting spoken to by the staff because their white Crocs are marking up the gym floor, so they can't be out on the gym because it's ruining the gym floor. Okay? Even something like this. Let's talk about accessibility basketball courts. I have so many kids that play basketball and that want to just go play basketball. Right now, it's a really difficult time. Some of these kids, they spend hours at the courts at Keach Park in the summer. Hours. Chelsea might be one of those people where it's literally like a safe space for her to go, and she can go there, she can be with her friends, and they can play basketball and do positive things and not be doing, you know, who knows what else, right? So, but now the problem is, now we have 6 months of winter. Now, these kids, they can't even play basketball. They don't even have a place in their neighborhood where they can shoot hoops. And for some of these young kids, that might be their only safe space. Or that might be their only 2 hours of therapeutic time when they don't have to take care of siblings at home or cook or work or do something else. You know, so for me, it's one of those things where I see so many barriers for kids, and it's really upsetting because they should have access to safe space. They should have access to go and play basketball. We've literally even asked Parks and Rec, we will go and shovel off the basketball courts ourselves if you just let us go out and use them. And they say, no, because you're gonna wreck the things or whatever. There's always a reason. There's always a reason. And what I'm finding is that there needs to be a group, or I would really push for a committee to be formed, because there are so many issues and barriers that young people in our community face that I'm not sure people are even aware of. Like, I don't even know how many people, literally new Americans all on the Loudon Road area, they cannot access that beautiful facility unless they have an adult or an older person with them. And even then, you have to have a reservation, unless it's not an open gym time, which you have to pay for, which then you have to have liability insurance. So there are so many challenges for just young people to access a community center across the street. Their park doesn't have a bathroom right now. Their park doesn't have water. We can't even access a basketball court now for 6 months for these kids. That is not okay. So that's why, you know, that was one of the reasons why I started Project Story. I was like, oh my gosh, what can I do? Like, I don't have any money, right? So I'm like, well, maybe I can get money and resources from the community. Maybe we can all work together so that we can pull resources and pull ideas and find a way to create accessibility for everyone in our community. So that's kind of why, I'm sorry, do you want to speak to that though?
Sure.
Yeah, I just went off, I apologize. But Chelsea can probably add to that about the accessibility.
Well, I just want to start off with saying that the first time that, like, I think like the first time that I ever kind of like, stood up in front of a group of people and like expressed how I felt about something was at the like golf course committee meeting thing. And I wouldn't say like I got yelled at, but I was heavily degraded by one of my community members, which made me very upset. And obviously like I'm still young and stuff like that, so I don't necessarily understand like taxes and all that stuff. And like, I just feel like if we have to push for something that hard to the point where literal like minors like me, like high schoolers, have to go to community events and like beg for it, I feel like that's a problem. And I mean obviously like it's not going to get solved in like a day, but I think that it's something that needs to be solved, and it needs to be solved as soon as possible. And especially with like accessibility, like the community center, we'll go back onto that. Like, I mean, I know that I'm 15 years old, I don't have a job, I don't have enough money to pay to get into open gym. Like, I mean, my dad doesn't have enough money to give me, just spare money to get into open gym, And about housing, my mom, my parents, we all used to live together, and then my mom moved out, and my mom found a place to live, but that didn't last very long because she wasn't getting paid much at her job. So my mom had to move from New Hampshire to Nebraska. I haven't seen my mom in like almost 2 years, which obviously is a little bit sad. But I just feel like, I mean, if there's so many opportunities, there's so many job opportunities, and it's like there's so many like requirements, and it's like if somebody has to be like 6 feet tall and be able to carry like 50 pounds to work as a host at like Five Guys, I mean, come on guys, like do better. And then also like about accessibility with like, disabilities and stuff like that. I mean, at Concord High, I did a class called Peer-to-Peer where you peer up with somebody with a disability and you learn more about their disability. And I also do Unified, which is basically just giving people with disabilities an opportunity to play sports because, like, I don't know why, but they won't let them on the regular sports team. And I just feel like why? Why is that even a thing, Like, I have to go from the top floor of the East building, so the 4th floor in Concord High, to the basement floor, just to see one of my friends with a disability. And it's like, why is their classroom all the way down there and mine is all the way up there? Why is the only time that I see them during lunch? I just feel like it's just like, so the world now, and like especially Concord, well not especially Concord, but you know what I mean, is very divided. And I just feel like I'm so grateful for like moments like this where a group of people come, and just sit around and talk about how they feel and talk about how we can change things in the community. But that doesn't happen very often. I mean, like, Martin Luther King Jr. Day is coming up soon. The nearest event is in Manchester.
That's what we were talking about.
That's kind of a problem. I mean, maybe just a little bit. And it's not even just Martin Luther King Jr. Day. It's like months to represent like different cultures and places. Like, we don't really do anything for that. I mean, like, last year, I think Fisto put on, like, an event thingy for Juneteenth. That was, like, I mean, we just need more people to show up to more things and really just advocate for the things that, not only that they believe in, but things that are gonna help, like, future leaders like myself. That's like kind of all that I have to say.
Thank you. I just want to say one more thing about Chelsea, but that just brings me to another issue, is educating our future leaders. Like, she's here, she's motivated, she wants to get involved in this kind of thing, and there's no real education or outlet for her to do that. Why can't the city sponsor something like that? You know, maybe we need the DEIJ committee to say, listen, we do need things. We do need to educate youth. This is important. Chelsea's here wanting to learn about this stuff, and there's no way for her to learn it unless she literally, I had to go pick her up. She couldn't get here on her own. There's like no other kids here. I had a couple younger kids talk to me about possibly coming here today too, but again, they couldn't get here today unless I gave them a ride. So that is a barrier in itself. So we need to find out how to educate people like Chelsea and how to educate other people that want to learn and get involved. These are our future leaders. She brings me so much hope. This is like so hopeful, and this is where we need to focus in. We need to focus on education, not only for our young people, but for everybody. This type of thing is educational, and I love, love, love the fact that you are all here. This is so wonderful. But I know so many of you. I do. I know so many people that have shown up here. It's like all my friends are here, you know, and that's wonderful. But at the same time, we need to educate community members that don't know about these issues so that they can join on and help us create the world that we want to see. Help us create a world where we can support people like Chelsea who want to be out there doing the work. And about the MLK Day, we are floored that there is nothing going on. We're like, oh my goodness, I'm Googling Manchester, there's all these events. We literally, Project Story literally got invited to attend an MLK event in Manchester. But why? It's to the point where we were talking today, we're like, well, we're just gonna put on an event by ourselves. We're just gonna host one for the kids, and we're gonna open it up to the public for whoever wants to come, and even if it's just an hour of reading Dr. King's works, then that's what it is. But at least the young people know that this is important, and that we need to take time and talk about this and learn about this. So that's probably how me and Chelsea are gonna be spending our Monday next Monday, is we're gonna be planning some sort of something to talk about Dr. King, the importance of it, but at the same time, we're like, why are we doing that? Why should we be doing that? That should be the city's role. Why isn't the city doing anything? Anyway, I would like to just leave with one quick thing about hope. I would like to say that it's very, very easy to get caught up in life and everything like that. We all know that. But this should bring you hope. Chelsea should bring you hope. This, the fact that we're all here, should bring us hope. This is so powerful, the fact that we even have over like 2 people here. This is a room of people that want to make change, and we can do that by working together. You can actually make change by doing very, very, very small things. Even if it's just talking to someone. Talk to your neighbor, educate them, tell them about Chelsea, tell them about our programs, tell them about barriers that young people, we have kids in our community that literally can't access basic needs. I am helping families, 9, 10 families, literally with food, okay? That's, you know, there are barriers that need to be fixed. So I urge everyone to do what you can. It can be very, very small. It can be very small. Something is talking to your neighbor, but it can also be big too. You could go and start some kind of club or some sort of organization to help people if you see barriers. And like Clement so beautifully said, Concord is so welcoming, and you know, it's a community that's going to help. It's a very helpful community. And so if we do work together, and we do help each other, and we do listen to each other, then we can create change, and we can make things work. And I don't want this to be another listening session where it's again, oh, it's just talk, talk, talk with all my friends. Because this is absolutely fabulous, but we also need to make change. We also need to make changes happen. So I can be like, see, Chelsea, this can actually get fixed. Yes. This can actually change and work for the better. So it's up to all of us to work together, do what we can, educate your friends, educate your neighbors, help people. That's what it all comes down to, is helping people and loving people and making sure that everyone is taken care of. So thank you very much. I apologize for being off a little bit, but thank you very much for giving us.
Wait, Sharon, don't go anywhere. Sharon, come on back. Fisto, if you want to come up. The that concludes our speakers, but we did have a section here for questions and answers. How we're going to do that, we didn't really talk about. But let me just say that one of the things, or two points is that next Tuesday at 6:30 is the next One Concord meeting. So if you are interested, please just email oneconcord2023@gmail.com or talk to any of us about attending. And secondly, our next listening session, because of course we could not, there's no way that we have touched on even a fraction of the communities that need to be brought forward. We're going to be having our next listening session on March 9th at 3 o'clock, place to be determined. So our next step actually is opening up for questions and answers. Most of our folks are still here, so does anyone have any questions for us? No? Zandra?
I had a comment and a question. First, a quick comment. Chelsea was kind enough not to name the individual who was so rude to her and other youngsters that listening session, but it was former City Councilor Mark Cohen, and it's on record, and people should know it was public. And I really hope he wouldn't be nominated or confirmed for any other roles in the city. He currently sits on a lot of committees, and if we're trying to build a better future, we need to make sure all community members can participate, be heard, and listened to without having that kind of response. The second is, can you remind everybody what the next One Concord event is?
The next One Concord, that's what I was just saying, is that we have a meeting actually next Tuesday, not necessarily an event, at 6:30. It will be at the American Friends Service Committee for Park Street at 6:30. But then the next event will be March 9th, will be our next listening session. Unless there's something else I'm missing. No, that's it. Okay. Ma'am?
I hope I'm a miss, but I can be a ma'am. That's fine. I'm 29, so. My name is Christina. Thank you for having this. I really appreciate it. I grew up in Concord, and my family has lived here for generations. And I wanted to just bring forth kind of the question and comment that a lot of things talked about. I loved the presentation on elders and that this city is getting much older. And so we need to be attracting a young, new generation to stay and grow families here. I work for an organization called Reproductive Equity Now, and we have to be thinking about how we're bringing people to have families when, if, and how they want to, and to be able to raise children in culturally competent ways. There's a Black maternal health crisis, and if we have many immigrants here or new refugees here who can't healthily give birth in this city or in this state, that's a huge problem. As a white, affluent person, I'm nervous to raise children in this state. Because of the lack of labor and delivery units closing. So I think that's something that we need to be thinking about. How do we raise healthy families and give birth in safe ways that work for each of us?
So one of the things we thought might be interesting to do to kind of wrap this up is just to hear, popcorn style, what's your one takeaway from what you've heard tonight? What's your one takeaway from what you heard tonight? Barbara?
You convinced me about the consultant.
I convinced you about the consultant. Okay. Takeaway, yes.
We need to make more connections.
We need to make more connections. Yes.
Community center is not a true community center.
The community center is not a true community center. Kathleen.
One thing we didn't hear was about your words always you share with us is communication. And we didn't hear it because there's, as I sat here today, there are a lot of wonderful things that go on in this community. And we don't communicate that. I could come up here tonight and talk about the positive things that are happening in your school district. And we don't, and I have board members sitting with me, and I think they will agree, we don't do a good job communicating, and Jim's always reminding me about communicate communicate, and then, by the way, communicate some more. So I hope that we can do a better job with that. Even today's event, and really, I didn't know about it until this week, and so important for the schools. We're not a separate entity in Concord. We're very much a part of this community. The work that we do, we want to weave together with the city. We have a meeting coming up with the mayor and our president of our school board because we feel so strongly about that. But we still have to work on our communication.
So communication, 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 that is a mantra that I like to repeat. And I think there's also a conversation that should be had about how the communication should happen, right? Because it's one thing to say we want something, but we also need to talk about how we want to actually make it happen. Yeah, we want a mic over there?
Now I feel official. Thanks. Kathleen, thank you so much for what you just said about communication. And I also feel if you're talking about takeaways, is takeaway of hope. We have heard so many stories of how we have to do better here in Concord, and we do. We absolutely must do better. We also have stories of hope. Hope of inclusion, hope of diversity and recognition of diversity for all people. And I think that that is something that we need to communicate throughout our city. My daughter, Allie, has a significant disability, and I will make this short. And she is also fully included at Concord High School. Fully included and also a big part of the community. And not only did she do cheer for the last 2 years, she's now doing unified cheer. And actually that's something that I went to a unified basketball game yesterday, and they were cheering for unified cheer. And I really was on the fence about it. I promise I'll make this short. But the hope that I got from watching the truly inclusiveness of unified cheer, bringing people together so that people with and without disabilities can do something unified together, learning the sport and really being a part of each other's lives, an inclusive community, was incredibly hopeful, incredibly hopeful. And I just wanted to point out that we do have inclusive education here in Concord. It may not be where it may not be where we want it to be. It is a journey, and we will continue along that journey. And we do have inclusive education in pockets and throughout the Concord district. But I think that we can learn about best practices to make it even more inclusive.
Absolutely, thank you. Lisa, did you want to speak?
The way that inclusion works in the Concord School District is if you have educated white parents who have been trained on advocacy skills, and a parent who can afford to take the time off with their advocacy skills because they're well educated, then your individual student is fully included. Otherwise, if you have a student with a significant disability, especially an intellectual disability, you almost never see the light of day outside of your self-contained classroom unless it's a gym class or lunch or music. And that's about white privilege, and we really need to address that in every school district across the state of New Hampshire.
Awesome, thank you, Lisa. And also one of the things is kind of our fault, because remember we asked all of the speakers to talk about 3 issues that their communities faced, not about answers or not about hope, etc. And we do also have to remember that communications is 2 ways. Somebody has to be out there listening as well. Clement, you had...
Yeah, I think what I was going to say, the education is more important. Education is not only going to school, but I have learned a lot today, especially, the definition of equity, inclusion, and belonging. So I've been really doing this, but today was kind of new for me. The other thing is, we heard from different people. So this session is really, really important. So we should also invite many people. So all the time when we meet, it's just the people who are willing to do the inclusion and, whatever term it is. But we need other people who are not willing to be here to be able to understand the issue that we have in the community. Because it's the same community that meet every single day. But we need other people, the business people and other people to be here so they will be able to understand what the issues the issue that we face in the city of Concord or New Hampshire in general. Thank you.
Thank you, Clement. And I guess part of what we're asking for is for everyone here to not just be listening, but to become part of One Concord and to act, because it's very easy to say, well, who's going to do that? But we have to act too, and also have to figure out how to reach that part of people to make them realize they are part of our community and they need to act as well. Any other questions? Yes.
Thank you for holding this space today. I appreciate that, One Concord folks. I was just wondering, when I came to the meeting, I was thinking I'm going to hear about the DEIJB committee and its formation. That's what I thought I was going to learn about, and I was going to hear the voices of folks in our community to reinforce why we need that. So I think that's my question around the DEIJB committee. Are we advocating to have one still?
Yes. Well, I think that's part of the thing, and anyone...
Because I didn't think that was a question anymore. I thought that was like on the ground, ready to go. So this is the takeaway for me. So I appreciate the advocacy.
The city council, the mayor and city council formed the DIJB committee back before April. I went in April to the first listening session, and that's the problem is we haven't moved anywhere. So I don't know if Byron has any insight into what we can do to move this forward more quickly.
Sure. Right, thanks. Great question. I think that there needs to be differentiation. Excuse me. Mayor Boulay created a 3-member DEIJB committee. The intent was for that to move forward and create a citizen steering committee that would certainly, in my regard, would drive this conversation and that would broaden the conversation. I think some of the comments and questions we've had here about the fact that this is a fairly small group of people, and the conversation needs to be widened to the greater community. And certainly my vision is that the Citizen Steering Committee, working with the consultant who's going to drive the process and make sure that we stay on point, as James very, very articulately explained, would be the group that would, get the conversation out into the community, create more public awareness, and make sure that we include as many people as possible in the conversation, and also in defining and supporting the work that needs to be done. Does that help?
Yeah. What's the next step?
As I said earlier, the next step is to identify a consultant to work with us to facilitate communications and to create the structure for the Citizen Steering Committee to move forward, and also to appoint a Citizen Steering Committee. Sure, Tina.
The school district has, Melissa was over here, a DEIJ committee has been on the ground for, I don't know, at least 4 years. I've been in 4 or 5 years, Melissa, something like that. Frank Bass, back in the day with Frank Bass, I got that email, yeah. So I wonder how the two groups could work together and collaborate.
That's part of what the superintendent was referencing. We're going to start talking about how we coordinate efforts. And what certainly my interest as mayor is, to what degree we work together in this steering committee process to make sure that we're moving forward in tandem and not separately.
Byron, how can we expedite the process? So,
Well,
I think that's, the sense of urgency is obvious. And the sense of urgency was obvious.
The sense of urgency was obvious when we attended the city council DEIJB committee listening sessions that were held. There
Yeah.
was an absolute want, need, and request for things to move forward and to move forward because a lot of these issues should have been addressed decades ago. So what can you, as the new mayor, do to expedite the process and show that there is momentum and that there is movement and that there are things that are happening so that we don't have to wait for another George Floyd situation where everybody is demanding action? We've already demanded action for quite a few years.
Sure, I
We'd
understand.
like to see some progress.
I understand that there is impatience. I mean, I think part of, I'm not going to speak, for Mayor Boulet's actions. I will say, though, that we were sidetracked somewhat by COVID and the difficulties it was to bring people together in person during COVID. But I've already started the process. Before I was mayor, I sat down with the city manager and discussed, putting together the RFQ to find the consultant. I didn't wait until I was sworn in. I did that immediately upon my election. I'm hoping that we can get the RFQ approved by the DEIJB committee, the city council committee, and then send that out to consultants. And I would say that if people know of consultancies or consultants that they feel should be on the list, that RFQ should be sent to, that they should forward that to me, and I will forward it to city staff. And so, we are driving forward to move that process forward as quickly as we can. Yes, Lisa.
Just because it's an accessibility issue, Mike's ensure that everyone can hear. Can we ask you to give us a deadline by which you will have that RFQ out of your office and in front of the DEIJB committee for approval? Can you set a deadline by which that will be done and in front of the committee? We can't ask for a deadline for them, but can you give that to us as a goalpost, please?
First of all, I don't have an office. My office is at my house in front of my computer. But my intention would be that we would have something out before the end of the month, or by the end of the month.
So by the end of January?
That's my hope, yes.
It'll be out of the city manager's office and off to review.
Right. I think that's realistic.
Awesome. Well, one of the things I just wanted to point out, quick, Xandra, before you go, is that this is communication. The One Concord has moved this forward. One Concord is here. It isn't just us. It is tenfold the number of people that we've seen here today, if not 100-fold, because it's really everyone. And so many people today just aren't able to participate as much as they should or would want to be able to.
This is amazing. This was amazing. There is no doubt this was amazing. The next one needs to be on a bus line, maybe closer to downtown. It needs to be where people with limited mobility, people with limited incomes, people who work interesting and odd hours, we need to have just a little bit more intersectionality with making the timing and the location accessible to the broadest cross-section.
Absolutely, and we had actually planned on this being at the community center, but the community center backed out, basically said that they did not have staffing at the last minute.
I think, to be fair, the community center was not contacted within the time frame they needed, and they had difficulty in finding staff who could come in at the last minute.
Okay. Xandra?
Yeah, sorry, the conversation moved a little bit, but I was just curious with the mayor. Do you have the nominees for the new steering committee for the diversity committee? Will that be part of the agenda on Monday?
No.
You
Part of
mentioned
what?
having the RFP.
I don't have the nominees yet.
Well, I'm sorry, Xandra, are you referring to the 30 nominations that we put forward as the One Concord, or a separate list of nominations?
It's an excellent question. I was referring to the 3-member steering committee, if that would continue. But the other part of that question is, one of the things that came up during the listening sessions and the previous committee meetings was having some members of the community help shape what a consultant would do and what those parameters would be. But it does sound like the city will be releasing, I just want to make sure I have this clear. The city's going to release an RFP. The consultant's going to be hired. The consultant's going to work with the mayor, who will nominate a committee, and that will then move forward. So we're looking at probably like March or April timeline before anything moves under the current plan. Would that be fair?
I'd say that's fair. And I didn't understand your question, Sandra. The answer is yes. With all of the other committee assignments will be announced on Monday for the new members of the DEIJB committee.
Thank you.
Awesome. And one of the things to clarify actually is that One Concord worked over a couple months to come up with a list of people that we are put forward as nominees for the DEIJB committee. And most of the speakers today, if not all of them, were people that we had nominated to be on that committee. So they are the people that are also working with One Concord and moving forward, basically. So there is a lot of action that is actually able to go places without a consultant. Zandra?
I don't want to take up a lot of time in the room, but I did just want to uplift. We didn't talk a lot today about what happened at Teetotaler, and I think while we're talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, the city's response, I know Stephen brought it up a little bit in his remarks, but I do think that, and I would encourage the city council and the mayor, that is one of your first steps, that you urgently explore the police response or lack of police response to the incident in June, and that we have not had clarity about what the path forward will be, and in the community settings where we have raised questions, that answers have not been satisfactory, and for people to feel safe, for small businesses to feel like they are protected, and for people to be able to go out and enjoy life in the city of Concord without neo-Nazis spewing anti-Semitic hate and targeting LGBTQ members. We do have to have a citywide response, and it needs to be urgently worked on. Thank you.
And also recruiting in the city. Mayor Byron, can I just ask, do you have the list still, or we can provide it again of the nominees that we provided earlier?
I do have it, and I appreciate the suggestions. Okay. But they're part of the overall group that I'm.
Any other questions? All right, Sharm, you were going to do a reflection? Okay, well.
We found a piano.
Yeah.
And we thought a way to sort of like. Oh, I'm the one like doing the mic stuff, and I didn't even talk into it. We found a piano back here, and we thought a really great way to kind of close this time would be to just come together with song as a way to kind of join our voices, join our kind of bodies in community. And I don't know, the song that came to me was Lean On Me. Do we have the words? Yeah. Okay, I can't see the words, so I'm going to do my damnedest to do this, but I'll follow you.
Yeah.